Hi everyone, this video is looking at the impressions question on the EDUQAS GCSE English Language Paper 1. This question is named, what impressions do we get of the work in the minds from these lines? If anyone wants to look at the exam paper, it's the one with the character of OBED from the No. 1 Ladies Detective Agency. The extract is available just on the internet if you went onto Google or on bpcenglish.wordpress.com. So remember, there's 5 questions in this exam. The impressions questions will definitely be on there. It will probably be question 2 or question 3. It will either be worth 5 or 10 marks. In this case, it's worth 10 marks. And you've always got to make sure you read the lines. In this case, it's 18 to 30. Okay, and it says you must refer to the text to support your answer. So there's the text. Remember, all the exams are about a page and a half, then you get 5 questions. Okay, remember our question is, what impression did you get of the work in the minds from these lines? You must refer to the text. And then there's the section. So of the page and a half, it's only 12 lines, so it's not a big extract, but we're going to talk a lot about it. So here's the extract, which we'll talk about more. We'll read through it later on. So first of all, what does impressions mean? Well, impressions means the kind of view you might have of a place or person when you read what is said about them. So this question is about a place, the minds, but in another one you might just get what is the impression of the main character. So it's really important is that what you think of the place and person. And obviously you're going to use quotes to back it up. So example impressions could be, you think the minds are happy, brave, scared, competitive, negative, selfish, and loads more. So like I said, it's focused on your response, so it's what you think. And how many quotes do you need to use? Well, if it's a 5-mark question, we're looking for 3 to 5 quotes, and if it's a 10-mark question, we're looking at 7 to 10 quotes. You need to use a range of quotes, so this means having quotes from the beginning, middle and end of the extract. So we don't want just a selection here, we want to cover the whole thing. It's really important that you cover the whole text. The exam board really want you to track through the text. That means really you should, every couple of lines, you should be using a quote from the extract. So what are we looking for in this question? Well, we're looking for adjectives, nouns, verbs, word choice, adverbs, the forest, hyperbole or exaggeration, how it starts or ends, so the structure, punctuation, sensory language and figurative language. So a big tip is, if you don't really know what some of these are, so for example, if you can't tell me straight away what an adverb is, that's what you need to be revising for this exam. Okay, if you want to look at exam terminology, I've got a worksheet that's on bpcenglish.wordpress.com. Okay, so if we look at an example, every noise put him on edge, but he pressed on. So every noise put him on edge. What impression, what type of person, what vibe can we get about that? Well, I would say if every noise put him on edge, that might suggest the character is worried or paranoid about something. Yeah, so if every noise, if you can imagine yourself, if you're on edge, if you were sleeping and every noise put you on edge, you thought someone was in the house, you might say the impression would be worried or paranoid. And let's look at the blue now. So, but he pressed on. So if we're talking about a spy or a soldier going over no man's land, if he was scared but he pressed on, what impression could we have? Well, we might get an impression that this person is determined. So something has happened where they're not feeling very good, but they pressed on, they kept going. So that impression would say determined. So the question again is, what impression do I get of the work in the minds from these lines, 18 to 30? And I want you, as we read through, just say, what impressions do you get? So, of the minds, the extract we're looking at, what kind of things do you think you get from it? So, do you think it seems like a safe place to work? Is it a happy place to work? Is it unhappy? Is it dangerous? Is it enthusiastic? Is it horrible? So, what impressions do you get from the work in these minds? They told us how we would be taken down into the mines and about the work we'd be expected to do. They talked to us about safety and how the rock could fall and crush us if we were careless. They carried in a man with no legs and put him on a table and made us listen to him as he told us what had happened to him. They taught us Funagalo, which is the language used for giving orders underground. It's a strange language. There are many words for push, shove, carry, load, and no words for love or happiness or the sounds which birds make in the morning. Then we went down the shafts. They put us in cages beneath great wheels, and these cages shot down as fast as hawks falling on their prey. They had small trains down there, and they took us to the end of long dark tunnels, which were filled with green rock and dust. My job was to load rock after it had been blasted, and I did this for 10 hours every day. I had worked for years in those mines, and I saved all my money. Other men spent it on women, drink, and fancy clothes. I bought nothing. I sent the money home and then I bought a cat with it. Slowly my herd got bigger. Okay, so the impressions I would say that we would get from there is that the mine seemed dangerous, challenging, that maybe the men are trapped, that it's an exhausting place to work, and maybe a bit of a depressing thing to work. So these are the impressions that I get, but now we've got to find quotes that prove this. If you want to pause the video, I've said depressing, challenging, trapped, exhausting, depressing, and actually I think we should forget depressing. Let's just go dangerous, challenging, trapped, exhausted. If you want to pause the video, pause it and see what, look at the quotes, look at my impressions, see how many quotes you can find for dangerous, challenging, trapped, exhausting. So for one example, 10 hours every day, I don't know why I put an E on the end of day, but 10 hours every day could mean the work is exhausting. Okay, so pause the video and see what you can find. So here's mine. I would say the yellow here, so I'm not going to go through it, but the yellow is the impressions I get is dangerous. I would say the blue are the parts where I think it's challenging. The purple is where I think the men are being portrayed as being trapped, and the pinky colour is the impression I get of the work is that it's exhausting. They talk to us about safety. So I would say if you're going to a talk and the first thing, going to a job, and the first thing they do is tell you about safety, that maybe is going to show you that it's a dangerous job. Then it said the rock could fall and crush us. So it doesn't just say fall, it says crush. So this is a violent verb which almost suggests that if the rocks fall, the men will be destroyed and die. Then it says if we were careless. So one thing I would say here is this pronoun of we, I would say this is the bosses saying, well, we've given you the talk now, so if anything happens, it's their fault. So it's almost the boss saying it's not our fault if anything happens, so they're leaving the blame at the door of the workers. Then it says they carried in a man with no legs. Okay, so definitely we could say carried is a verb, which shows us that if something does go wrong, that it will rob you of your independence, that you will now that you'll have to have other people do stuff for you. Then it says a man with no legs. So I would say, again, this shows it's a dangerous job because this is what could happen to you. You could lose your leg, so it could amputate you. But also I would say it's a warning to the men that if something goes wrong, it's their fault. So they've really got to be careful. And then it says, as he told us what had happened to him. So again, that's a warning. Then it said they taught us Funagalo, which is, I would say this is challenging. So imagine if you went for a job at a restaurant or something, a new job, and they said, oh, actually, we're going to speak in a different language. That would be a challenging thing. And then he doesn't describe the language as easy or okay. He says it's a strange language. So strange almost suggests that they found it tough. Then it says there are many words for push, shove, carry, load, but none for love. So these are imperative verbs. So imperative verbs are sort of commands. So these shove, carry, load, it's all to do with the work, but no words for love or happiness. So we could almost say there that the impression we get is there's no fun or emotion, it's all just work. And it says they put us in cages beneath great wheels. So this is a very evocative image, isn't it? They put us in cages, almost suggests they're being treated like caged animals. And then it says even the word us. So again, the pronoun of us suggests that Obed is not on a cage on his own. He's maybe in a cage with like 7 or 8 people, so they're really hemmed in. And then it says these cages shot down as fast as hawks. So that is a simile. However, I would say it's not particularly a great one that we could talk about in this question. You may disagree. So I probably wouldn't really talk about that simile too much. Then it says they took us to the end of long, dark tunnel. So again, long and dark, especially dark, the adjective dark tells us that it's a depressing place, that maybe, because the connotations with the word dark are death, negativity, emptiness. So these people, these dark tunnels, almost suggesting you're never going to come out of them. Then it says they were filled with dust. So it doesn't just say there was dust, it says it was filled. So filled, the verb filled suggests that you wouldn't be able to get anywhere away from the dust, that maybe it would be an unhealthy place for you to work. Then it says he did it for 10 days, so definitely that shows me that it's physically exhausting. So it doesn't just say 5 days a week, every, so the word every, adjective every, suggests that it was 7 days a week with no time off. And then I would say the last thing we can talk about is that he says he saved all his money, but only slowly. So the adverb slowly suggests that it was a very low paid job. Okay, so we're going to go through these one by one, but there are my impressions in yellow, and then underneath I've got the verbs, I've got the words that I'm going to use in my quotes. So how are we going to go and structure our answer? So it's all well and good getting the information in, but the hardest thing is putting it down on the page. So firstly, I would start each point with the impression I get is. I know this might sound a bit robotic, but it does keep you very focused onto the question. Okay, and my other tip is use one-word quotations where possible, because this makes your inference really clear and specific. We don't want 5 or 6 word quote. We want you to zoom in or focus on one word or one phrase and say, why has that been used? What impression is the writer trying to give you there? You can copy out 5 to 6 word quotes, as long as after you copy out the quote you then focus in on one point when you do your connotation. So this is how I would structure my answer. I would say my impression, then my technique and quote, and my connotations of quote. So for example, one impression I get is if it's dangerous, my technique and quote would be the violent verb crush, and my connotations of the quote, well, what does the word crush means? So this suggests that the minds are a powerful place and they might punish you or even kill you, because I've used the word crush. So the first impression we're going to look at is dangerous. So I just spoke about crush. So what are the connotations with the word crush? So we can see this image here. Look at the way this is the image of this here. So what are the connotations? I would say the connotations of the word crush. So connotations meaning the word and image is linked to the word. I would say power, I would say pain, and I would say destroy. So these are the words that just me, remember this question is focused on my response. These are the words that I would say linked to the word crush. So let's look how we structure our answer again and do a little paragraph based on crush. So the main impression I get of the mind is that it's dangerous. Now I'm going to use my quote. The workers were given a talk about safety and were told rocks could fall and crush. So like I say, they're relatively big quotes, but now I'm going to focus on one word. Okay, the violent verb crush suggests the minds are powerful and it would destroy the men if they were careless in the mind. So really simple. In my red, it's my impression, then my quote, and then I've zoomed in on my quote saying, why does that make it dangerous? And all I've done when I've done my connotation with the word crush is I've gone back to this, gone back to my connotations here, power, pain, destroy, and I've put them in my explanation. Crush suggests the minds are powerful and it would destroy the men. Really good answer. Okay, the other quote I had for dangerous was I said they carried in a man with no legs, because the point I'm going to make here is that it's dangerous because if you don't do something in the mind and you lose your arm and legs, carried it means it's going to rob you of your independence. Okay, so again, the minds could wreck the miners' lives if they were not careful. They carried in a man with no legs. Carried suggests the minds have taken his independence and he needs others to assist him in anything he does. Okay, another thing is we could talk about the fact that there was a safety talk. If we were careless, and warning man with no legs. Okay, so the idea behind this was that if you having a safety talk at work, it's probably going to be a dangerous job. We said earlier on, if we were careless, so it's almost the workers' fault if something happens, and also the fact they brought in a man with no leg is a warning to the workers that they must adhere to the rules. So let's put that in. So the use of the pronoun we suggests that Bob is absolving himself of any responsibility, and whatever happens to the miners will be their own fault. It's also a threat to the miners if they do not do their jobs properly. They may end up with no legs or something worse. So again, very short quotes that I'm zooming in on. Okay, let's look at challenging. So the quotes I picked out for challenging are the adjective, it's a strange language. Okay, so I talked about this earlier on, that OBED could have said it was an easy language, or if it was a ridiculous language, but strange language suggests that they found it tough of how to speak it, that they didn't really know about it, that it was a bit of a hard thing to get their head around. So again, my red is my impression. Another impression I get is the minds of it is challenging. Then I'm going to say my quote, the miners had to learn the strange language Funagalo. Okay, strange, I've just zoomed in on one word. Then I've explained what the word strange mean. The use of the adjective strange shows it did not come easy to the men, so that would be enough. But then I've read between the lines a little bit and I've said, and they have to use their brains as well as their bodies for their work. Okay, other quotes I had for challenging was the imperative verbs, didn't we? So we had shove, carry, and load. Okay, so again, quote, all of the Funagalo words are imperative verbs, shove, carry, load, but none for emotional things like love. And I just explained why the fact that they only have words for work, what does that tell us about how it's challenging? Well, this suggests the work is all constant and there is no time for fun or light-heartedness for the men. The other one I had for challenging was it was filled with dust. So we talked about this earlier. If we look at this image, there wasn't a little bit of dust, there wasn't dust around. Filled suggests that it's almost completely full, that the dust is unavoidable, that OBED is probably getting ill from the dust. Okay, we're also told that the tunnels are long and dark and are filled with dust. Okay, zooming on the word filled, what does it mean? The verb filled suggests the tunnel with dust is unavoidable and may affect the men's health. Okay, the other quote I had was long and dark, so I'm going to zoom in on long and dark. So dark, what words can we connote with dark? So death, nothingness, fear. So these words, that dark adjective has been used for a reason. I'm going to explain it now. Very simply, the adjectives long and dark suggest the minds are a depressing, negative, fearful place. So here are my connotations with dark, and I'm going to put them into my paragraph. Dark suggests the minds are a depressing, negative, fearful place. So it's really, so this is all of my quotes here for challenging. One thing that you should notice, even though it's like a PE, I've only put my impression once right at the top. So I put another impression I get of the minds if it is challenging. I don't, after every paragraph, have to then go, another reason why I think it's challenging is. You've put it's challenging at the top, then all the way past that, all you've got to do is track through the text. Say what quote you've put to prove it's challenging, and then explain your quote. Okay, physically exhausting. So this one's not going to have too much. Okay, the physically exhausting ones we had was it said it was tiring 10 hours every day. So it doesn't just say 10 hours 5 days, every suggests it's all the time. Okay, so all day. And the other one was it that you only slowly save money, so it's a low paid job. So very slowly he saved up and he could just about afford to pay for some stuff. Okay, so another impression I get of the work is it's physically exhausting as they work 10 hours a day. The work seems low paid as the miner saved all his money and only slowly as herd got bigger. The adverb slowly suggests that only after a huge amount of time the workers could save a noticeable amount of money. Again though, look, I've only written at the top my impression is exhausting. Okay, I haven't written it again. Okay, trapped, again there's not going to be too much for this. So the noun cages, so this suggests that Obed couldn't get out, that he was trapped, that he couldn't get out, that he was almost like a prisoner down the mines. Okay, another impression is the men were trapped in the mines. My quote is they put us in cages. So even though that's a 5-word quote, I'm now going to just zoom in on one word. So cages suggests the men are like imprisoned animals. Really simple. Impression is they're trapped. Quote cage. I'm explaining why cages says they're trapped. So cages suggest the men are like imprisoned animals. The other one for trapped could be the pronoun us. So like I said earlier on, it's not like Obed is there on his own. Us in cages suggests probably there's like quite a few of them in the cage. It's almost there's no room. Okay, very simple. The pronoun us suggests there are a lot of people cooped up into a small space. If you're in a cage, it does suggest a small space, doesn't it? It doesn't suggest that it's like a massive cage. It suggests they're all cooped up in one thing. So again, I put my impression at the top, they're trapped in the mind, and then I've given my 2 quotes and explained them. I haven't then gone and written my another impression all the time. Okay, if you wanted to go even further with that quote about the cages, you could have said the animal comparison of the reality of the mine is in stark contrast to the miner's dream of hearing the sound of which the birds make in the morning. So that basically means that when they were talking about the Fonogalo language, Obed was talking about that they couldn't hear like the natural sounds that everyone wants to hear, so the birds in the morning. And in fact, the reality of the animals for them is that they were caged animals. So the difference between him wanting to be like a nature, a nice thing, and in fact they were just like trapped like animals. So there are all the quotes again with the impressions. This grade 9 answer is available on a word page on bbcenglish.wordpress.com, so feel free to download that if you want to. Any questions, leave me a question in the comments section, but hopefully that's given you a better idea on how to answer the impression question for paper 1.